Morning, dear students. I hope you people are fit and fine. In furtherance of previous lecture, today I am going to discuss another offense, that is defamation. Section 499 to 502, 499 से 502 तक इंडियन पिनल कोड में ये प्रोविजंस दिए गए हैं. Next to life, man cares most for his reputation. Sometimes we find an individual giving it the foremost place, preferring death rather than living a life of ignominy and disgrace. We have heard of the stories and even historical narratives of our ancient warriors and Rajput ladies having committed suicide rather than falling into the hands of their enemies and being compelled to live in shame and disgrace at the cost of their reputation. Reputation is in fact a great internal force in the mind of every man, impelling him to do things. Love of reputation inspires individuals. Love of reputation inspires individuals to the great things and even face risks. On a careful analysis of the human mind, one will find this element of longing for name and reputation as the basic motive of most actions. Authors, scientists, poets, and all others who are engaged in certain activities have in the innermost recesses On a careful analysis of the human mind, one will find this element of longing for name and reputation as the basic motive of most actions. Authors, scientists, poets, and all others who are engaged in certain activities have in the innermost recesses of their hearts a longing to earn a name in their respective fields of activities. If you remove this instinct in man, he is deprived of his mainspring in life. Rightly, law gives protection to a man's reputation as it gives protection to his life and property. The Indian Penal Code too contains provisions protecting a person's reputation. We have already seen that defamation against the state is contained in section 124A, and defamation of a class, that is the community, is contained in 153 of the Indian Penal Code. The following is the text of the law of defamation incorporated in the chapter 21 of the Indian Penal Code, and it deals with defamation of a person. So let us see firstly section. Defamation under section 499 is defined as whoever by words either spoken or intended to be read, or by signs or by visible representations, makes or publishes any imputations concerning any person intending to harm or knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation of such person is said, except in the cases hereinafter accepted to defame that person. Explanation 1 say that it may amount to defamation to impute anything to a deceased person if the imputation would harm the reputation of that person if living, and is intended to be hurtful to the feelings of his family or other near relatives. Explanation 2 incorporates that it may amount to defamation to make an imputation concerning a company or an association or collection of persons as such. Explanation 3 says that an imputation in the form of an alternative or expressed ironically may amount to defamation. And explanation 4 says that No imputations is said to harm a person's reputation unless that imputation, directly or indirectly, in the estimation of others, lowers the morals or intellectual character of that person, or lowers the character of that person in respect of his case, in respect of his caste or of his calling, or lowers the credit of that person, or causes it to be believed that the body of that person is in a loathsome state or in a state generally considered as disgraceful. Illustration A says that A says Z is an honest man. He never stole B's watch, intending to cause it to be believed that Z did steal B's watch. This is defamation unless it falls within one of the exceptions. Illustration B says that A is asked who stole B's watch. A points to Z, intending to cause it to be believed that Z stole B's watch. This is defamation unless it falls within one of the exceptions. C. A draws a picture of Z running away with B's watch, intending it to be believed that Z stole B's watch. This is defamation unless it falls within one of the exceptions. First exception say that imputation of truth which public good requires to be made or published. It is not defamation to impute anything which is true concerning any person if it be for the public good, that the imputation should be made or published. Whether or not it is for the public good is a question of fact. Second exception, public product or public servant. Public conduct or public servant. It is not defamation to express any good faith, any opinion, whether respecting the second exception say that public good or public conduct of public servants. It is not defamation to express in good faith any opinion whatever respecting the conduct of a public servant in the discharge of his public functions, or respecting his character so far as his character appears in that conduct and no further. Third exception talks about conduct of any person touching any public question. It is not a defamation to express in good faith any opinion whatever respecting the conduct of any person touching any public question and respecting his character so far as his character appears in that conduct and no further. So there are total 10 exceptions, and I will discuss one by one. But firstly, let us see the essential ingredient. It is a general discussion on analysis of the offense of defamation. The following are the essential ingredients of the offense. First, the making or publishing of an imputation concerning any person. Second, the means of such imputation are words, writing, signs, or visible representations. And third, such imputation must have been made with the intention of harming the reputation of the person about whom the imputation is published. So first point is reputation. The subject matter of the right of the person protected is undoubtedly reputation. What is meant by reputation? A person's own opinion of himself is not his reputation. कोई अपने बारे में बहुत ऊंचा विचार रखता है, ये reputation नहीं. It rather means the opinion of others about him. It is what neighbors and others say what he is. In other words, reputation is a composite hearsay and which is the opinion of the community against a person. Every individual is entitled to have a high opinion of oneself, but reputation is the estimation in which a person is held by others. The good opinion one bears or the esteem in which one is held in the society is one's reputation. My reputation is not what I think about myself. The latter is myself. The latter is my self-esteem and is internal, whereas reputation is something external to me. It is what others like XYZ thinks of me. My reputation is a great asset to me in society, very often enabling me to get material wealth as well. With the good name I possess in society for solvency, I will be able to get credit from a bank and draw large sums of money from that credit institution. Law rightly protects this external esteem of a person in society. This aspect of the law of defamation is made clear in explanation 4 to section 499 of Indian Penal Code. Another element is publication. So publication is one of the most essential ingredients in defamation, as it is because of publication that others get to hear or come to know about the allegedly defamatory imputations. Thus, A's communication of defamatory matter about B directly to B will not be publication. Again, I am repeating. A's communication of defamatory matter about B directly to B will not be publication. On the other hand, when A says something or writes something disparaging about the character of B to C, A has published something defamatory to B to C, for which A is guilty both in civil and criminal law. Reputation refers to the opinion that others have a person. The following illustration clarifies the relations between publication and reputation. When Mr. A has directly abused B as an unreliable and dishonest man on his face, or has directly written a letter to B containing those defamatory expressions about B, A is not guilty of defamation, for there has not been any publication to a third person, which may lower the estimation of B's character. Hearing these abusive words or reading that defamatory letter about himself by B may lower his self-esteem in his mind, but that may not have affected his reputation. Reputation of B is what C and others thinks of B. Therefore, defamation is the publication of a statement which tends to lower a person in the estimation of other members of society generally. It is libel if the statement be in a permanent form and slender, if it consists in significant words or gestures. What is the distinction between English law and Indian law on the point of on the offense of defamation? The liability arising from publication, namely that there should be communication at least with one person other than the defendant, is tenable only in the civil branch of law of defamation, that is in tort, whereas in crimes the basis is breach of the peace and mischief to society. The gist of the offense in English criminal law is whether the words written by the defendant have a tendency to provoke the breach of the peace. Thus, in the illustrations given above, if A's defamatory letters are directly addressed to B, they will be considered defamatory in criminal prosecutions only if their contents are calculated to provoke B to do something which will disturb the Queen's peace in the locality. Publication in its primary sense as communication by the defendant to a person other than the defamed is the basis of liability in English civil law of defamation, that is tort. This principle, which is not accepted as the basic principle of English penal law of defamation, is accepted as the basic principle of penal liability in the Indian Penal Code under explanation 4. Thus, the basic principle of English civil law of defamation is made the underlying principle of the IPC in case of defamation. Words that may have the effect of provoking another person at whom they are uttered are made punishable under section 504 IPC, which deals with intentional insults offered with intent to provoke breach of the peace. The gist of the offence in section 499 IPC seems to lie in the tendency of the statements, verbal or written, to create that degree of pain which is felt by a person who is subjected to unfavorable criticism and comments. There is another important difference between English law and Indian law in the matter relating to spoken defamation or slander. The slander cannot be the subject matter of criminal prosecution in England except when it happens to be seditious or blasphemous. Slanderous words are never actionable criminally except when they happen to be utterances against the state or state religion. The IPC recognizes no such distinction, classifying both as punishable. So, as far as publication is concerned, let us see forms of publication. And first is direct communication to the defamed. Direct communication to the defamed was held to be no publication under the IPC by a majority of the full bench of the Allahabad High Court in Taqi Hussain case, a very old case, 1884, Allahabad High Court. The accused in this case sent a suit notice to a policeman claiming damages for an unjustifiable search of his house made by the latter, attributing malice and bribery to him. At the instance of the policeman, a prosecution was launched against the accused for sending the suit notice, which contained highly defamatory passages about the policeman, saying that he received bribes, etc. The majority of the full bench of Allahabad High Court held that there was no publication as contemplated under the section, as there was no communication to a third person other than the defamed. A similar judicial dictum can be traced in Sukhdev Vitthal Pansare versus Prabhakar Sukhdev Pansare, wherein the Bombay High Court ruled that making a defamatory statement and communicating it to a person other than the person concerning whom it is written is said to be publication. However, where the accused knows that his communication will be read by others are well known or will be known to others in the usual course of business, he will be liable. Therefore, in Sukhdev case, where the accused had in his reply to the president of municipality made a defamatory imputation and the president led the reply before the councillors in ordinary course of business, the accused was held guilty of publication of defamatory matter under this section. However, it is held that a letter containing defamatory imputation dictated by a lawyer to his stenographer who transcribed it and then sent it to the concerned person does not amount to publication, even though a third person comes to know the defamatory matter. Such a defamatory imputation practically does not go beyond the lawyer's professional range. Similarly, a letter received by a lawyer containing scurrilous allegations or imputations about his client does not tantamount to publication. Similar is the case of issuing of notice by a lawyer or exchange of notices containing defamatory allegations through lawyers by the parties to a case. A letter containing defamatory imputation, when is sent not to an individual but to a firm, mean to be read by all the partners of the firm, therefore tantamount to publication. Next point is publication by repetition. The term publication includes repetition or republication of a libel already published. So, if a newspaper reproduces a libelous article from another and makes the article its own, it is liable to all the consequences resulting from its publication. At best, the fact that the article was merely a reprint would help to reduce or mitigate the sentence or damages awarded. As best, as Chief Justice Best put it, because one man does an unlawful act to any person, another is not to be permitted to a similar act to the same person. Wrong is not to be justified or even excused by wrong. One will be held liable for circulating defamatory rumors. A rumor was current that a fall in the shares of a certain railway company was due to the failure of its chairman. The defendant repeated the rumor by saying, "You have heard what has caused the fall. I mean the rumor about the southeastern chairman having failed." The court held that the existence of the rumor afforded no defense to its publication by the defendant. This principle has been followed by the high courts in India also. In the Indian decision of Howard, 1887 का केस है, where the accused republished an extract of a defamatory article from another paper, he was held guilty. It was held that the fact that another journal had also published the same matter could not be a defense for escaping liability. Another point is means of publication. There are 4 types of publication: words spoken, written, signs, visible representations. The distinction between written defamation and spoken defamation is between libel and slander is not maintained in the Indian law. The word visible representation will include every possible form of defamation which human ingenuity can devise. For instance, a statue, a caricature, an effigy, chalk marks on a wall, signs or picture may constitute a libel. Illustrations B to section 499 is an instance of defamation committed by signs, and illustration C by visible representation. Next point is printed matters, liability of editor and others. Strictly in the eye of law, the editor, printer, publisher and even the distributor is liable for the printing or publishing of any defamatory matter. It is not open to the publisher to contend that he had no knowledge that the paper contained any defamatory article. Balu Subramaniam Mudaliar vs Rajgopalachari 1944 का केस है. In this case, Madras High Court held that the editor of a journal is in no better position than an ordinary subject with regard to his liability for libel. He is bound to take due care and caution before he makes a libelous statement. However, it has been held in an earlier Madras decision, Ramaswamy versus Loknanda, that it would be sufficient answer to a charge of defamation against the editor of a newspaper if he proved that the libel was published in his absence and without his knowledge, and that he had in good faith entrusted the temporary management of the paper during his absence to competent persons. Another point is imputations concerning any person. So the word imputation indicates something bad about another and implies the attribution of evil, the making of an accusation, allegation, insinuation or a charge against a person. The words complained of must contain an imputation concerning a particular person or persons whose identity can be established. Unlike in civil law of defamation, where the intention of the person making the imputation is immaterial, as far as section 499 of IPC is concerned, the imputation made by any person must at least be believed to harm the reputation of such person. In other words, a random statement not directed against any particular man or class of men is outside the scope of the section. Further, the words intending to harm also indicate that intention is the gist of the offence under the IPC. The element of malice or legal malice, which is all important in the civil law of defamation, is not an essential constituent element so far as the defamation of so far as the definition of defamation under IPC is concerned. Next point is intention to injure. So section 499, by this section, the person who defames another must have done it intending to harm or knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation. Intention to cause harm to reputation of a person is signed to a noun of the offense of defamation. The essence of the offense of defamation is the harm caused to the reputation of a person. The commission of the offense of defamation or publishing any imputations concerning any person must be intending to harm or knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will cause harm. However, defamatory words or imputations that merely tend to injure a person in his trade or profession are insufficient to initiate an action for defamation. Such a statement, though likely to injure him in his business, does not reflect either on his private or in his business character or reputation. It is therefore not defamatory to write and publish about a tradesman that he has ceased to carry on his business, or that his business has been or is about to be acquired by another firm. It has also been held that words of common abuse such as "you idiot," "you scoundrel," and others, which convey no definite imputation harmful to one's reputation, do not constitute defamation. The same view was taken in the Amir Hassan case. In this case, accused was a pleader for the defendant in the case of Ram Gulam versus Mendai Lal. Then being heard before a munsif, and during the course of his argument, while speaking of the status of the parties, said, why who was Ram Gulam's father? He died when he was scraping grass. At this, Ram Gulam put his head through a small door in the munsif court and said, what does Amir Hassan know of pleading? Up to yesterday, he and his father were peddlers and hawked about small wares through the streets. These expressions gave rise to mutual prosecutions and convictions, but Justice Strait quashed the convictions on the ground that the words were no more than vulgar abuses which did not amount to defamation. So these has been the basic element of the defamation, and in next lecture I will discuss the explanations about this offense. Thank you very much.